Greetings and salutations, friends, new subscribers. Namaste, deep bow of respect for sharing with each other. It's a great pleasure getting to know a little bit about you, through the personal messages and watching your channels and comments. It's an interesting experience. I do have to say that it's beautiful and it's heartbreaking at the same time, because I wish, you guys were closer. We could help each other out a lot. So I'd like to say that, I'm really no expert at anything. I'm getting there with the painting. So, it's all experimentation, and that's one of the beauties of gardening is I don't think there's anything that makes a gardener more happy than pulling something off that wasn't supposed to happen, growing out of season, and experimentation. And same thing with artists, highly experimental people. So I was going to tell you a little story about Pennsylvania. I'd listened to some old-timer advice and, had done some things on my own and going, against the rules, which I'm sure a lot of us here do quite often. So they said, don't plant before the holiday. Late spring frost could come in. So, I had my little startups, and there had been some differences in the size, and the speed of their emergence, but I couldn't stand the thought of killing them. So I just did it a little prematurely, not following the old-timers' advice on when to plant. And spring frost came through, and lo and behold, it had wiped out all of the little seedlings that were slightly larger. And I wasn't adamant about seed collecting at that time, so I had just let the plants go, and I didn't really see that big of a difference. If you grow tomatoes, bell peppers, eggplants, these kind of things, you get used to seeing the size of the plants and its production rate. So it got me into a practice of not making quick judgments. It would be like saying that, all the babies that are born over 8 pounds are going to be bigger, healthier, stronger, better, faster as they go through life. Well, that's not always the case. Some, big babies, human being babies, end up being slow and not so healthy, even though they were born at a good birth rate and they came out. And some prematures catch up and are very intelligent children. So it got me to consider I do segregate plants. Now, if they are perfect flower plants, self-pollinating plants, they all go together. And when I'm harvesting the seed, I do collect from the biggest and best producing. Now, if it is a cross-pollinator, I tend to segregate those guys a little bit and then watch and see what happens as the season progresses, because some of those plants that didn't emerge so quickly or were small to start actually catch up. Now, this could be very well just a few feet, slightly different sunlight, a little bit more water, a little bit more fertilizer. There's a lot of variables that go into what gets that plant to a nice full maturity and food production. So I encourage you, play around with that as well. Don't always be so quick to make those decisions right off. So when I'm planting the seeds, I don't put 2 right next to each other and then clip them away or tear them out. I did, in a few seasons, watch the root systems and did mark the ones that sprouted fastest looked good, and then when I was transplanting them had the most developed root systems. And I've labeled those, and over the years I'll get to see, you know, if it really does produce an all-around better crop and seed production. So, my next topic, my mind is just always, it's cranked, and I don't sleep very much, and haven't really slept more than 2.5 hours straight in about 15 years. And now that I'm doing this and getting comments and looking at different resources, it's just put me on rapid fire. And I come to realize that, you know, I take some things for granted when I'm speaking and doing things that other people are aware. So I'm trying to, you know, slow down and explain the terminology for people that aren't used to gardening. And but most importantly, you know, I want to see everybody's success. And I tried my best to point out when it's my experience, real world experience, when I've read it, when I've heard it, haven't tried it yet, gonna try it, don't think it's a good idea, because I don't want to endanger anybody, and I realize that you know, lives could be at stake here, and I take that very, very seriously, so I want you guys to know that. And I love feedback and critique. As a young artist being trained, you are quickly conditioned to accept critique without fuss. You know, that's really the only way that you it could get better at anything. But first and foremost, you must consider the source of the critique. If it's just a windbag who's, you know, like you guys call them, trolls, you know, that just like to spew venom, then of course, you know, you discount them. But if it's coming from a sincere place, and especially a person who has experience, it's good to consider all of the feedback that you're getting. Now, so going back to not wanting to endanger anybody, I have the practice of doing certain things, and I tread lightly on the earth most of the time barefoot, and I realize that's not for everybody. You know, some people are dealing with ground wasps and bees and don't know the terrain that well and are new to the outdoors. And I'll give you a brief history. I told you I grew up in the woods of Pennsylvania. My father was a contractor and also a registered surveyor, and one of my first jobs as a child was a back site. And for those of you who don't know anything about surveying, they're taking the measurements of the land. Well, they always have to have a point to measure from. And then when the surveyor moves to the next furthest point, this point is where you get your back sight from, and it's a use of a plumb bob and measuring devices. So you survey the land that way. Well, sometimes in between the calls to hold the plumb bob to get the measurement, there'd be a little bit of time depending on the type of terrain we had to cross through and the distance. So, long story short, I grew up in the woods. I have fallen asleep in the woods and have had unbelievable encounters with wild animals and interactions with domestic animals that it's almost mind-boggling. It's an honor. I woke up the one day with deer, 5 of them looking down at me. They were right on top of me, and it kind of startled me, and they jumped back a little bit. It startled them. But anyway, I digress. So I'm aware of my environments, whether I'm in California, Texas, and here in the United States, we have really 2 threats with the spiders, and that would be the black widow and the brown recluse. And as the name suggests, reclusive, snakes and spiders do their very best to avoid at most times. So I had handled snakes when I was younger of all kinds, and I ended up living with them and spiders and other exotic animals. So I don't have a fear of these things. I have a healthy respect and know how to identify, and especially because of the training as an artist, I'm fine-tuned for details. And they're wonderfully camouflaged, the beauty of nature. So know your environment, what's around. So in my area, you know, you have some water moccasins and rattlesnakes and copperheads, and you know, I can't be fearful. More people, you know, one of the most dangerous things that you could do every day is get in your car, and we just do that without thinking. So I'm aware that they're here. They are very sensitive to vibrations, and just like my sensitivity to my worm friends, when I'm digging the ground, I will stomp it first to let them know that I'm coming in, and they do their best to navigate through the soil and move away, get deeper, further away from where that vibration is. The black widow has a tendency, because the heat here is unbelievably oppressive, so they have a tendency of only being out at night, although I have encountered one in the early morning. And a brown recluse is going to be underneath porches, in sheds, in attics, crawl spaces, basements. They like the dark, and they will, you know, if you're going to go into one of those spaces, rattle it around, throw on some lights, and they will be aware that you are coming in, and you are far less likely to encounter something that you're not going to enjoy. All right, so with that said, here we are, another beautiful, fabulous day, and I am chomping at the bit to just get the stuff boxed up, get the move done, so I can really do some serious videos and gardening. And the seed exchange is going wonderful. Oh, my swallowing, which brings me to another thing. One of my subscribers said, "Oh, you know, hon, I'm worried about you. It looks like you're in pain when you swallow." And I said, "Oh God, I never even realized until I started filming myself how awkward it looks." So to get into a little personal history, there's no pain at all. Thank you for worrying about me. I'm perfectly fine, and I'm going to try to be a little bit more aware of when I pause and swallow. And I have a lot of dry mouth because I smoke a lot of weed. No, I'm just joking. But so I'm going to have the drink next to me, and excuse me, take sips every once in a while, and try not to do that awkward swallow so much, because it's even aggravating for me to watch it when I do a preview of the videos. It is most likely, I have had numerous x-rays done, it's most likely a combination of the nerve damage that had been done through medications, and also horrendous violence of car accidents and what have you. I climb, I skydive, I drive my car at 142 miles an hour plus for extended hours, so I've been in car wrecks, falling out of trees, this, that, the other thing. So what could you do? There's a tremendous amount of damage, nerve damage in my spine and brain, herniated discs, fused vertebrae, and the curve on my neck isn't quite right. And not to get any pity from anybody, because anybody who sees what I do certainly cannot go there. It's just a testament to how resilient the human spirit and body can be with, you know, giving it the right tools. So that's pretty much what I'm about, you know, clean water, good food. Like I said, you know, I can't control the air, so hopefully that'll stay good enough. But it's also my hopes that giving it these other clean necessities, that it'll make up for some of the toxins in the environment. So there you have it. Who knows what I'm going to come back with. I was going to do the canning, but I had decided I don't want to can up a whole bunch more stuff that's just going to add weight to the move. So that'll be for after the move and after the seeds are in the pods and the garden gets going. But I want to tell you, I have the utmost respect for everybody and anybody that's is on this path. And if you're doing this, canning is going to be a cakewalk, just as long as you get those temperatures boiling, and you know, if you stick with the hot water bath and it's in there long enough, you're going to hear the pops of the lids, the sound of success. And then there's also a technique that if you want to explore it before I actually get to do a demonstration, I did not believe it. I watched this man can butter. So I said, well, I got to try that, and then do a little garlic herb butter. And I have butter that's been canned for 2 years now, and I pop it open. Has a slightly different texture and a little bit different odor, but we consume it. It's, you know, it's fine as far as I could tell. Who knows if it's doing anything, you know, that I'm not, you know, feeling. But so that is done with just a hot oven, dry, because you can't mix the wet with the oil. That would be a nightmare. And I'm going to give you some tips on canning other vegetables if you don't have the pressure cooker. Old timers would just make sure that the concentration of tomato sauce was high enough to have that acid there. And that way you could add other vegetables to it, and then it's a great base for, you know, stews and soups. Add a couple beans in there, add some corn and peas, because it's basically the acid base. All right, enough of my rambling. I'm going to get this thing loaded and I'm going to get back to work. And I'm frantic just now with the seed exchange and getting things boxed up. So be well and safe, and many blessings to you and yours. Arrivederci.